Hey everyone, it's Leanne. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. I'm creating a Valentine's Day card today, and I'm using the Roses for You stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. This is a look at the card I'm going to create. So I will show you the process of how I created this. So I'm starting with an A2 size folded card. It's top folded. I have a piece of mixed media cardstock, and I'm going to cut that down a little bit off the width. And then this is the Roses for You stamp set that I have. I'm going to use the blue stamp. I've used it before, you can see. And then I have some pink linen paper as well. This is loosely from Michael's in the scrapbooking section. I have Versamark and Versafine ink pads to use as well. Now the Versafine is a black ink and it's good for fine detail. And then I will use this Recollections embossing powder. This is in the color Snow and it's a white opaque powder. And then I have two distress inks. I have Picked Raspberry and Seedless Preserves. And I will be using these to blend the background. And then I have some blending tools to go with those. And then of course I always have an acrylic block for putting the stamps on. And so let's get started. So I'm going to start by preparing the mixed media cardstock first. I do want to trim that down. I like the way the pink will be in the background. I'm going to have the mixed media sit over top of the pink and have some of the pink showing through the edge. So I want to make sure that I cut enough off the width that I can see that pink showing through in a good proportion. So I'm coming in with my Fiskars paper cutter and trimming off an approximately 3/4 of an inch or so. And then I'm going to prepare my surface for embossing. So I have a piece of scrap paper to catch the drippings from the embossing powder. And I'm going to come in with some kitchen flour first just to prepare this surface, just to make sure that when I put the ink down, the embossing powder only sticks to the ink and there's nothing else on the paper to catch the ink, anything sticky. So I'm just going to lay out my stamps quickly before I begin, just to make sure I know where I want those to go. When I have the placement figured out, I'm going to sketch with my pencil just around the edge of my cardstock, and then I'm going to mark some lines on my scrap paper to show the area where I want the stamp to be for the roses. So you can see I'm marking the edges there, and then I'm just going to put some ticks at the side, and so I know that the roses stamp should fall in between those marks. So I'll pick this up with my acrylic block and then I will put some Versamark ink on it. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare my surface with that kitchen flour and a mop brush. And so just taking a little bit of kitchen flour, I just brush it quickly over the top just to make sure that if there's any grease or anything sticky that I can't see or feel, that it's not going to stick. So this is the Versamark ink pad and this is for embossing. It's a sticky clear ink. And so using the guides that I put down earlier on that back scrap piece of paper, I'm going to put the stamp down in place and then I'll put the embossing powder over it. And so I do have that scrap paper that'll catch all of the extra embossing powder. So I just like to tap this a couple times with my mop brush just to make sure any stray embossing powder grains just fall off the edge, and usually they're pretty good. So I've run this under my heat tool off camera and you can see a little bit of the embossing. It's looking really good. And so now I'm going to come in with some distress ink. I'm going to start with the Picked Raspberry, that's the lightest, and so I want the overall shape of the heart to be shown using that, sort of like a glow coming out from behind that roses stamp. So I just do this in a soft circular motion, and I've sped up the video so it doesn't take as long to see, but you can sort of see the process of what I'm doing. So I'm working very lightly here. I don't want to go too dark because if I get a spot that's too dark, then I need more space to blend it out into white, and I don't want to go too far beyond that roses stamp. Once I have the Picked Raspberry down, I'm going to come in with Seedless Preserves and just darken the core part of that heart so that it feels more visually strong so that you can see it easier. I have some embossing powder from Recollections, and I'm going to use that instead of the VersaFine. I had decided I was going to use the VersaFine, but the embossing powder is in a plum color, and so it matches the seedless preserves really well. So I'm going to emboss that sentiment on instead. So I'm preparing the surface exactly as I did before, and I've stamped it that sentiment, and then just doing the embossing. I'm going to keep that down to the bottom part of the card though. And then tapping off any extra, and then just taking my mop brush, I'll do a quick swipe across the bottom to pick up any stray grains of embossing powder. And then I'll run this under my heat tool as well off camera, and then I have that all ready and done. Now after I got looking at this, I felt that the darker part of the heart wasn't big enough. It was not reading quite what I wanted, so I came back in with some more of that seedless preserves just to push the boundaries of that heart a little bit, the background glow. Still making sure that the pink shines through, but going more towards the edge of the heart just so it reads more completely right to the edge. So I felt that adding this helped just make it a little more clear and easy to see. I was pretty happy with this. And I did go back in with the picked raspberry just to make sure that I still had that pink edge, because I did want that soft pink kind of poking out from the edges. So now that I have my card design done, I'm ready to prepare the background to put it on. So I'm using the base of my card. This is the folded card. I'm running my tape roller around the edge of the front and then doing an X across the middle, and that should be plenty of tape to hold the pink linen paper on top of it. So once I have that all taped up, I'm going to come in and put that down onto the linen paper. Because it's a linen paper, you can see that there's vertical and horizontal lines, so I want to make sure that I line those up with the edges of my card. And then once I have that done, I'm going to trim the edges down here with my X-Acto knife and ruler. And so the trick to this, by using an X-Acto knife, I can line my knife blade up to the edge of the cardstock. I can feel the difference in height, and then make sure my ruler butts up against the edge of my knife, and then I can get a very precise cut. And so when I flip this over, the pink linen paper will look like it is the base of the card. You won't see any overhang, or it won't show any of the white cardstock peeking through. So it's a nice clean cut, and I really like that effect. So now I'm going to put my decorated piece on with some foam tape. And so I could line the entire perimeter. It does take a lot of foam tape. So instead what I like to do is cut off about an inch or an inch and a half of a piece and then run them in opposite directions around the perimeter of the background. I put a couple more in the left and right edge just because it's sort of a taller piece than I would normally do, so it felt sort of empty in that area. And then I like to put a piece of foam tape in the center just to support the art so that it doesn't sag in the middle if any pressure is put on it. And because this piece runs flush to the top and the bottom of the card, I'm going to mount it a little bit differently. So I'm going to turn it up to its folded edge so that the top of the card and the top of the folded edge part of the card are touching my desk. And I'm going to line those up with my hand, just making sure that I have them in the center, just eyeballing it. And then when I'm done, the top parts will be flush as well. And so that was super easy to mount this, and a pretty quick and easy card to create, even though it has a really pretty effect. I do love the white embossing with the distressing background. So I'm going to add some embellishments here. I have some sequins. I picked these up at my local Dollar Tree, and I thought the pink was really pretty just to tie in some of the linen into the art as well. So I'm just going to stick this down with some craft glue, and I'm going to use my X-Acto knife, super quick and easy. I like to take the blade of my X-Acto knife and just pick up a little bit of the glue and then touch it to the back of a sequin and push it down onto the page. So not a lot of fussing. I don't like to mess with foam or rolly tape or anything like that. I find that the craft glue is just nice because I can put a nice big blob down, and it's quick and it dries quick and no fuss, no muss. It's pretty quick. I love it. I like doing it this way. And so once I have those in place, I'm going to do a little more embellishing to this. I'm going to come in with my Jelly Roll pen. Now this one has the little shooting star on the lid. There's some different types, but this one here is the purple color. So it sort of complements the sentiment, which is done in that dark plum embossing powder as well. So this is sort of to tie that all together. I'm going to do just some splatter marks with the Jelly Roll pen, some very tiny little dot splatters, and every so often I'm going to add a bigger dot just to add some visual interest into the splatter so they don't all look too uniform. And then following the direction of my embellishments, my sequins, I'm sort of going to trail it from the top left down through the heart and down through the bottom right. And that sort of leads the user's eye into opening the card. They start at the top, look at the image, they have the supporting art that trails down to the sentiment and then leads to the opening of the card at the bottom. So I find the Jelly Roll pens are actually really fun, and I use them a lot in my cards, and I have a good assortment of colors, and sometimes I can just get carried away and lost doing little embellishments with them. They just add sort of an extra level of texture, of visual texture. So they're a nice sort of complement and easy update to add to it as well. So as one last embellishment, I couldn't resist. I came in with my Wink of Stella brush pen in clear glitter, and I just want to add some brushes over some of the roses within the heart. And so what I'm finding is that this brush pen is activating or reactivating the distressing, and it's creating a darker look, so I just kind of used it as a shadow brush and did around the bottom rim of each of the roses. So here's a look at the finished card. I really like the way this turned out. It's nice and light and whimsical, sort of different for Valentine's Day, but still in the same theme. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you're notified as I post more videos. Thank you so much for watching.